Welcome everybody once again to the Spanish Breakfast Show live on YouTube Spain. I'm Skatz and I'm finding the answers to lots of your questions about how to move to Spain and by speaking to an expert. You can ask your questions in the chat box to the side or below depending on which machine you're using, and if you're not watching live, in the comments below. Either way, we will get you some answers. My lovely wife Liz is looking in and she's on the chat under the name U2 Yoga. So if I miss any questions, she'll pass them on to me or we'll answer them later. Give her a wave, everybody. Hello, Liz. And also a quick shout out to my grandsons, Ben, Elliot and Oliver, listening in from the UK. Hello. You can go back to your video game now if you want. I won't mind. Speak to you soon. On today's show, we're talking about visas again, because if you're a non-EU citizen wanting to move to Spain after Brexit, that's what you need. And today we're focusing particularly on the money side of the non-lucrative visa. So just before I welcome my expert guest, do yourself a favour and hit that subscribe button and click on the bell, ting, so you can get notifications whenever we've got an amazing guest for you. It doesn't cost you anything and I don't share your details with anyone, it just keeps us in touch. So without further ado, let's connect with the man who's helping me and Liz become a resident in Spain. It's Chris from Upsticks. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, how are you doing?
Oh, very good, thanks. Welcome back. How's Malaga looking this morning?
Very nice, very nice. We had up to 28 degrees yesterday and it looks like it's going to be warm again today, so that was nice.
I'm so jealous. In Ireland we had hailstorms through the night. It's a bit of a difference, isn't it?
I won't show you out the window.
Brilliant. Now, I've had lots of questions on social media and no doubt we'll get some on the live chat too. So let's get started with the first question. Straight into it. One from Greg, or is it Grieg? It's an unusual spelling, G-R-E-I-G. Give us a wave in the chat, Greg, if you're watching. And his question's the most common one. And we did talk about last time when you were on, Chris, but we have some new and equally confused viewers today. So let's cover this again. The basic question: what is the money required for a non-lucrative visa? And I'll just add that usually somebody on social media replies, well, it's 27,000 plus 6,000 for each additional family member. Then it's twice as much the following year, which causes people to ask, so do I have to keep that in the bank all the time? And if so, what do I live on? So let's get some clarity on that. Over to you.
Yeah, so, well, that's a good answer on social media. I can say that. So basically, I'm just touching on what we spoke about last week, which is how they actually calculate the amount that you need to live on. And we spoke about this system IPREM, didn't we? But the Spanish have this sort of a minimum wage calculation, which generally goes up every year, though it hasn't gone up for the last 4 years. It's gone up this year. And that's currently sat at 6,778 euros. And for an EU citizen, they have to prove means to live, or economic means, based around that amount. And for a non-EU citizen going for a non-lucrative visa, it's 4 times that amount. So the first applicant, or an individual applicant, the minimum requirement is 27,000 euros. It's actually 2,715 euro, 27,115 euros. And then each beneficiary of that applicant you have to add 100% of IPREM. So, for example, if it's a husband and wife, and I've quite conveniently got it on my screen here because I haven't got might got all the exact figures in my head. If it's husband and wife, for example, it would be 27,000, let's call it, plus 6,700, so around 34,000 euros. Okay, now that's the absolute minimum. Okay, so everybody's like sort of basing that on, you know, if you were to go to residency application with 33,893 euros, then you would be scraping the barrel. But that's the minimum requirement, shall we say, for a husband and a wife.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you'd be able to argue them in. You're good at that part of your job, aren't you?
yeah, the argument, 42 cents on it. But yes, so. So that's that. Sorry, what was the other part of the question? There was a 2-part question.
Well, it's basically, do they have to hold that money in the bank for the whole time of the non-lucrative visa and have other money to live on?
No, so you would need that for the actual application. So basically, when you make your application for the visa, you need to prove that you've got that money. I did see there a property-related question, which we can come to in a minute. But this money's got to be. you've got to have access to this money. This money is supposed for you to use during the time of your stay. So non-lucrative visa, essentially, initially, it's for someone who's coming to Spain to retire for the first year. They need to prove they've got enough money to live off of. So you could use this money, but if you then come to extend your visa, you would then have to meet the visa requirements after a year. So say, for example, and obviously everybody's circumstances is different, but say, for example, you had this amount in savings, but you were selling a house or something, which would then fund your visa from year 2 to 4, moving forward, then evidently you'd have to spend some of that until your house got sold, and then when you came to renew your visa, you'd have the funds from that, which could prove that you've got enough to live on for the following extensions. So no, you don't have to keep that exact amount in the bank, but when you come to renew your visa, obviously your requirements are going to be reviewed again.
Good. And actually, Daryl Cook, hello Daryl, he was, I think I know the answer to this one, he was hoping to spend alternate months in Spain and the UK, so he can be earning in the UK and still have a non-lucrative visa. And he says, if you're not allowed out of Spain for more than 10 months within the first 5 years of residency, how are you expected to fund the 66,000 you need for a couple in years 3 and 4 of the application? I think he means years 4 and 5, or years 2 and 4 when you renew. So what's the obvious answer to that one?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it is what it is. If it is a retirement visa, non-lucrative visa. It's not someone who wants to come back with something. We've sort of, obviously, with losing the European status, become certain problems like this, that it's really hard now for somebody who wants to work and fund a life for themselves in Spain. So, within I don't know where the 10-month thing comes from, but maintain if you want to extend your non-lucrative visa after the first year, then you have to spend more than half the year here in Spain. You can't spend 183 days out of Spain. And
I think the 10 months is, I've heard it mentioned that over the period of 5 years, although you can spend up to 6 months outside Spain, the total over the 5 years of your residency, I think, is 10 months.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, well, how are you expected to fund? Well, you are expected to fund it. It is what it is. That's the rules. You need to have the money, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Okay. Daryl does have another question, which is also asked by D. Johnson. Hello, D. And can you use collateral held in owning a house in the UK or property in Spain? D doesn't have any rent or mortgage to pay, so it's got to
be a liquidable asset, shall we say, so money you've got access to. So
could they argue that because they've got no rent or mortgage to pay, that they don't need as much to live on? So you can argue that point.
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, the property thing. Obviously, if you jump to invest in $500,000 in a property, you could look at the golden visa, which is something that we'll talk about, I'm sure, on another show. But at the moment, the money and that's set there is for you to survive on. So, although in some regions with EU residencies, believe it or not, they do take property as collateral. They do here in Malaga to prove here in Spain. So if you are an EU citizen and you go to immigration and you've got a property in Spain, you can use that as your economic means. Some regions they accept it, some regions they don't. In fact, from police station it changes. But no, in this instance, you do need to have the money to live off, or have access to money or the income.
Okay, I'm just looking at another question on my screen, and it relates to the one I was going to ask anyway. Can you work remotely as long as you have the sums to meet the visa requirement?
Oh, the $64,000 question, that, isn't it? Yeah. Digital nomads. This is the big question with a non-lucrative visa. Can you be a digital nomad with a non-lucrative visa? Well, yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing it, because a non-lucrative visa means non-lucrative in Spain. So you can still leave Spain to go and work in another country, or you could essentially run another company from Spain. What you can't do is work and contracted in Spain, start a company in Spain, or work, should say, for a Spanish entity.
Mm-hmm.
For all intents and purposes, there's nothing stopping you from working online. That said, obviously, when you come to the end of your visa period, depending on how much of that money that you're earning and how it's positioned when you come to renew your visa, is whether the person in the immigration office accepts it as you not actually doing an activity in Spain or not. So it's slightly complicated. There isn't any set rules. It's a bit grey area, but there's nothing that says you can't be a digital nomad and have a non-lucrative visa.
Cool. And actually, so Craig's question relating to that is, are English earnings taxed in Spain or UK? I think that's another complicated question.
Yeah, well, so we actually deal with tax. We deal with the registration process of residency. So I have to say we're not tax advisors. That said, to have a non-lucrative visa, you also have to spend more than 183 days in Spain, at which point you become a fiscal resident. So yes, when you're a fiscal resident in Spain, you have to pay tax in Spain. So there's obviously Spain and the UK have a double taxation treaty, which has nothing to do with them leaving the EU. It's in place before that. So obviously the intricacies of everybody's situation is different, but it's definitely something that you need to take advice on for getting a non-lucrative visa.
Okay. So if you're working remotely, but you're living in Spain, you'd pay your taxes in Spain because you're resident there.
Is your resident, yeah. And so in Spain, the way the tax works in Spain is that so again, we do our tax declarations the following year after a full fiscal year. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's really important to get advice and when you're coming over, how long you spend to stay and stuff like that. So for the tax returns for 2020 are now being done in April 2021. So it's definitely, but you do become a fiscal resident if you take a non-lucrative visa, because you have to spend that minimum amount of time in Spain to maintain it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Right, move on to Tim Hayes now. We've got to move on fast because you've got to go at 11 your time, 10 my time.
Yeah.
So I'll get through these as quick as I can. So Tim Hayes is asking, this is one that just came in about half an hour ago. If my wife and I are planning to retire in Spain and purchase a home for ourselves, but also a second property in Spain to rent out, we originally were planning to get a non-lucrative visa, but we're not sure if that will work if we're renting out a second property. Does that mean they're earning money in Spain, so they can't do it?
Oh, that's a good question. That if they haven't got it set up in a business structure, then there shouldn't be any problem with that, because that's sort of personal income. But that's a good question. That's one that I haven't come across yet, so I would have to check on that to make sure. As part of the initial application, obviously, there wouldn't be a problem because they're not going to be declaring income from a second property in their first year's visa, are they? Mm. Now, when they come to renew their visa, whether they can use that money from a second rental property as part of their income to prove they can support themselves, I'm pretty much sure they can, because it's not a business activity. They're not working. They're just they're earning off their assets, so it shouldn't be a problem. But that'll be something I need to check. So we'll leave that note down.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, they might have to transfer to an Autonomo self-employed visa or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, after the first year, I mean that's probably not in that respect, because I mean, Autonomo, if they're getting income from a rental property, it's personal income. It wouldn't be it's not a business. It's not even a business structure. So, I don't know. I don't think that would work with Autonomo probably. But
so they wouldn't have to pay. They'd still have to pay tax on that money, wouldn't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Then. Good. I was just thinking, if you can afford to buy two properties and want to rent out, is that going to amount to more than 500,000 euros? In which case, they can get a golden visa.
There's that option as well. Yeah, that could be that option. If you're buying two, if you invest in $500,000, where you get the option of the golden visa, which gives you a lot of flexibility for work and even leaving the country and going in. So, yeah. I mean, what wouldn't be allowed is, as you say, if you're buying one property, you're renting the room and calling it a B&B, because that's a business activity. So.
Okay.
So, moving on, we've got a few questions from Gary Cabes. If he was Spanish, it would be Cabez, which would sound much better. And actually, I'm going to answer his third question first because he's wondering which solicitor to use. And he says there are lots of links online. How do I know which one to use? Well, Gary, I'd recommend that you arrange a free callback from Chris. Which you can do via his website, upsticks.es. There you go. I've got a plug-in for you, Chris. I'm not on commission, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And Chris,
plugs are always good. Plugs are always good.
Chris isn't a solicitor, but he's got liaises with his trusted solicitors and primes you and organises a case file for you to take to your local embassy for the visa application. So Gary says he's got a fairly uncomplicated visa application. Are you allowed to say online on this site how much you charge for that kind of sorting out, or would you prefer to discuss that on his phone call?
We normally discuss it on a phone call, but we start. What I can say is that most solicitors or most people who help you, they've seen prices. Sorry, get this phone call, so I'm going to cancel that.
Oh, you've got side on there.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I think I'm back now.
Yeah.
Most solicitors, the prices start from around €500, and we've seen all the way up to €3,000 for people helping non-lucrative visas. Mm-hmm. Again, what a decent solicitor would do would be, first of all, have a chat with you, or decent representative, have a chat with you and work out what the work was involved. And then, as you say, if it's an uncomplicated case, then I'd say anything around €400 or €500. That includes helping someone here in Spain get the TIE card as well. Would be not a bad fee. Again, it all depends on your case, because a lot of the times you might have to have 20 documents translated, which would be on top of the solicitor's fees. The solicitors don't normally include their fees, the translation of documents. And then really, you'd want to know a decent breakdown before you got started of what's actually included in the service they're providing.
Great. Let's see. There was one more. There's a question just coming from Craig. I think we might cover that on another show. It's after the second year transferring to a self-employed visa. Is that possible, and is it quite easy? I think that's a question we should ask on when we're talking about the self-employed visa, because it's just as easy to apply for it straight away as it is for after the first year, isn't it? It's the same process.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're talking about completely different visas, so I think we'll do that on a show.
Let's leave that. Good plan. Let's see. Gary's other question was on the visa application form. It asks for an address in Spain, but he only has an area or a town. He wants to move to Torrevieja. Very nice. And is it acceptable just to use the region or town as residence area, or do you have to have a proper address?
You have to have a proper address on the application form. Mm-hmm. Now, you should be able to use your representative's address if they've got an office address there at the moment. So that would be good. What we're still waiting to see is if the embassy, who refuses to answer our emails, is going to want in other areas. So non-lucrative visas around the world, 50% of the places want you to actually have a specific place where you go in. It's either a property you own or a rental contract already in situ before the visa applications, and other places are happy for you to use the details of a representative and a contact address, like an office, right? So we're actually waiting for the embassy to confirm at the moment whether they're going to want to see proof of an actual address, i.e. with a rental contract or property, or whether they're going to be happy for us to use our office address, for example, if someone hasn't got something prepared already, like a property or rental contract.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's another question. And you've got to remember, we are on March the 13th. And although there's a lot of people who are talking about non-lucrative visas and stuff, the embassy's only just opened, has only just started taking appointments. As the weeks go on, everybody's talking about non-lucrative visas, and most of the experience is derived from applications from around the world. Mm-hmm. This is the first time that Brits have ever been third country nationals and are applying for them, and we're a week into the application process. So there's going to be a lot to come out in the wash as we're going along.
Good, and I'm sure we'll answer all those questions as we go along. So the final one from Gary, this is a question about the S1 form. It's with regard, this might be one for a different show, but let's see if there's a short answer. With regard to health insurance, although he's not at retirement age, he has an exportable benefit from industrial injuries, which entitles him to obtain an S1 for healthcare. Will an S1 be accepted by the embassy for the NLV application as proof of healthcare?
Oh, another good question. Now, all intents and purposes, yes, it should be accepted, and as long as it's a permanent export certificate, an S1 which permanently exports your healthcare to Spain, that shouldn't be a problem. A couple of things on that though is evidently this is the first time that any EU country has left the EU, and this is under no circumstance has a non-lucrative visa ever been applied for using an S1, because there's never been that situation.
Uh-huh.
No. So we're yet to see if they accept them. There shouldn't be a problem because immigration here accept S1s as proof of healthcare passport certificate, but the UK will only issue S1s to a Spanish address, so you'd have to probably get them sent to Spain first and then sent back. So that's again, and you can use a representative's address to send your S1 out to. We receive them here at the office quite often. Mm-hmm. At the moment, there's no problem with the S1s being registered here in Spain for people who've been doing their residency within the withdrawal agreement, and they've been accepted, and people were getting them quite quickly through and getting their healthcare and getting registered quickly. So yeah, there shouldn't be a problem. We're yet to see if there's going to be any problems at the embassy with the S1s, but it looks like you might have to get your S1 sent to Spain and sent back for your application.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to do one more shout out from Adele Hockey. Aha! Hello, Adele. I think Adele is going to be on the show next week with her husband. They have a holistic retreat over in, let's see, I can't even see this without my glasses. It's in the small print. Los Higuerales. Oh, that's over in Almeria, is it? Or Murcia? I don't know.
No.
So it's over that side of Spain, definitely. But hello, Adele, and we'll see you on the show next week. I think, well, we've run out of questions and there are no more on the chat. We've managed to fit it all into the half an hour. So
that's good. That's good. Well, I think we'll have, as and when, with everything immigration, you can read what they publish. You can contact them and get their information. But I'm sorry, I keep getting a call, so I keep turning that off. But the proof will be in the pudding once the applications start going in. So there's some appointments now coming up, and we'll find out, more information as and when they come up. The S1 is a massive question. That's a huge question. Mm-hmm. We really something that we haven't had a response from yet from the embassy or the consulates we've been contacted, because obviously healthcare is a big issue, because the big demographic of people who want non-lucrative visas are between 55 and 65 years old. And obviously it could be tough to get a private healthcare policy which meets the minimum requirements, but it's certainly going to be tough for someone maybe who's slightly older than that but has got access to an S1. So that's one thing that we really are pushing to try and find out. I can't see any reason why an S1 wouldn't be accepted.
Especially with you arguing the case for it, Chris. I'm sure you can do that.
Yes, yeah. There is absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be accepted. But this.
Oh, we seem to have lost. Oh no, I think you're back with you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With yeah. So
yeah.
So yes, that's a big one, and obviously, well, the income we've been through that. It is what it is, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm. So what should we talk about next time when you're here in 2 weeks? What
would you like to talk about?
Well, is there more on the
I'll tell you what we could talk about is the healthcare requirements. Get a little bit more into detail about the healthcare requirements. So we can show you some examples of the certificates that we've used here in immigration for private healthcare, and also what you need to get. And there's other requirements, obviously, like criminal records checks and the translations and the apostille and stuff like that. So we could run through, now we've done the initial how much money you need in the bank, which is the biggest question. There's also quite a lot of other things you need to go through before you could do your appointment at the embassy. So we could perhaps run through that.
Yeah, cool. And the what's the actual charge at the embassy for the visa? That was the last one.
516 quid.
There we go. So that covers all the basic financial needs, and then it's so basically it could cost you that 500 plus whatever solicitors and translation charges and all those kind of fees. So it could cost 1,000 or 1,500, or depending on the solicitor's fees, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot more expensive than it was pre-withdrawal agreement, to get a visa here, unfortunately. So but it's 516 quid per person. So a family would be $2,000 if it's 4 people.
So the best solution, obviously, is to get yourself an Irish passport. And which I will. Can I so something that came up is quite funny, and it might be relevant to a lot of your listeners. So I thought I'd just say this now before I knock off in 3 minutes. But now what we're seeing is a lot of people who've had a relationship with Spain before and had the need for an NIE number, a certificate, to whether they bought a property or they've just got one because they had a relationship with Spain or whatever, and they've registered that with their British passport, have now got access to an Irish passport. But when you go to the Foreigners Department here in Spain, that becomes a problem, because obviously you've initially registered with a different nationality. It is possible to get an EU residency certificate even if you initially registered with an NIE number with your British passport. There's a few more hoops to jump through, and depending on who you get on the desk, the hoops might be slightly smaller, slightly bigger, take a bit longer to manage, but it can be done. It can be done. It's not a problem at all. So I had a few cases where people have said, they just told me to go away and register as a Brit. But no, if you have registered as a Brit with an NIE certificate, non-resident, but now wish to register as a resident using an Irish passport, it is possible. Great. So I've got one or two other things to tell my viewers, but Chris is off to play golf with the kids now. So I'll let you go.
So thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for your time and expertise.
Brilliant.
Right, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Great. So, as I said before, Chris is going to be back with us in 2 weeks' time and answering our questions and just saying goodbye to Skype there. And yes, it's going to be all about healthcare. So Upsticks.es, as I mentioned before, is Chris's very own informative YouTube channel, and he has that's his website, but he also has a very informative YouTube channel. Sorry, I'm holding up my microphone here, it's falling off the desk. Next week on the live Spanish breakfast show, my special guests will be the Hockeys, a British couple who made the move to Spain fairly recently. They'll be telling you their exciting and interesting story, and you can ask them questions on the chat about how they made the move and how it went for them, and how they chose to live in the area that they chose, and how they set up as self-employed people doing holistic therapies. I'm really looking forward to that, because my wife Liz is an holistic therapist too, and we're going to be self-employed in Spain. Also, I should mention Liz has her own channel, which is called U2 Yoga, and you can have free yoga lessons online and meditations. She even does live meditations on Zoom, which you can join in. So if you're interested in that, or in watching our blog channel, which is called Liz and Skatz, the links will be below in the video description. If you've learned anything from this video, and I hope you have, give us a like, and of course subscribe and click on the bell. Ting! We do have Ting t-shirts available. It's true, I'm not joking. And we also have the U2 Spain sweatshirts, t-shirts, mugs, etc. All of the merchandise below. And there's a link below to the Liz and Skatz merchandise shop. So that's all for this week. Thanks once again to Chris for being brilliant. And everyone, take good care of yourselves. Peace and love. And we will see you next time on U2 Spain. Bye for now.